Good evening. Thank you, Tararam. Chag Sameach. Welcome to the Jewish Media Summit, which is being held for the 5th time. After 2 years of the coronavirus, we are very happy to be meeting in Jerusalem again. Thank you for being here. My name is Miri Michaeli. I'm a news anchor and a journalist, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. The summit has become a tradition for many of you and for the decision makers in the Israeli government. Dozens of Jewish journalists from around the world have come here to Jerusalem, including representatives from the US, Canada, France, Germany, Georgia, Slovakia, Poland, Italy, South Africa, and even distant Australia. So welcome. Our goal is to examine the challenging and complex issue. Are we really one people with one destiny? Over 4 days, in a series of fascinating meetings, discussions, and roundtables, we will delve into important issues such as solidarity and pluralism, the war on anti-Semitism, Israel-diaspora relationship, Israel's image around the world, the Iranian threat, and the implications of the Abraham Accords. Awaiting you are experiential tours and meetings with many interesting people. Most importantly, all of you are meeting here together in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, in order to build cooperation for the future. More than a few people, especially from the Government Press Office and the Diaspora Affairs Ministry, have worked on this conference. You are certainly familiar with their part. I'm honored to invite GPO Director Nitzan Chen to say a few words. Nitzan, bevakasha.
Welcome to the 5th Media Summit, but most importantly, welcome back to Israel. Yes, I can recognize faces that I know from the previous summit. Bruchim habayim. We are really delighted to see you all here this evening and to kick off this very important gathering of the Jewish media from around the world. The role that you play as journalists is pivotal in influencing opinion, challenging ideas, and most importantly, in telling the facts as they are on the ground. In this age of fake news and sensationalism, we are in dire need of reliable and authentic news, honest reporting, and unbiased opinion. We know as journalists that news can be changed in any direction. We know too that an image is just the sum of the screen size and that the picture we see may not show the whole story. A twist message is only as long as the numbers of the characters, but the story is so much longer. There is a famous song by one of the Israeli iconic singers, Yehudit, in which she says, "Ma sheroim misham lo roim mikan," which very loosely translated says, what you see from over there is not what you see from up close. And I think that this is really the reason behind the Media Summit. What we may see in Israel up close could differ very much from you see in Israel from far away. And what we perceive about world Jewish communities from far away is vastly different when you look closer. The importance of the relationship between the Jews of the world and Israel is to understand that there are two sides to every perspective. What you see and what we see may not always be the same, but together we are looking at the same objective, our future as the Jewish nation. As messengers, as reporters, as friends and relations, we journalists have the unique position to mediate between 2 points of view. We can explain and shed light on confused issues, encourage and promote understanding, and ultimately act as a broker between sides to create harmony. This conference comes at a pivotal point in our combined Jewish experience. There are sectors of our community who may not be as open-minded on either side of the spectrum of opinion. There are factors which are difficult to comprehend about the other experience, and this is also controversial. In addition, people may say that our rebel roses who seek to sow discord and misunderstanding, and this is unjustifiable and unacceptable on either side of the spectrum. Moreover, from outside the Jewish world, we are facing never before seen attacks in classic media, fake accusations, anti-Semitic troops, and together with the all powerful misuse of the news media, and this is a main challenge for the GPO at this challenging time. And they are real and very tangible threats to journalist integrity. This vile train of thought has reared its ugly head time and time again, and has the potential to erode trust, foster division and conflict, and undermine the very essence of our society. The time has come to combine our capacities as journalists and to fight this hateful phenomenon, to speak up loud and strong against hypocrisy, blinkered views, and downright lies. And even more than that, perhaps most importantly, as journalists, we can be the catalyst for open dialogue, informed opinion, and creative resolutions. New governments and other political changes can be a challenge and an opportunity for the Jewish media. Yes, this is much to discuss, to comment upon, and to ask questions about. But we, the Jewish press, both in Israel and around the world, should not be a conduit to engage delegitimization or baseless hate. By providing accurate balance and fair reporting, and by promoting responsible and ethical journalism, we can combat the key challenges facing Israel and indeed the entire Jewish world. Our very Jewishness and our shared identity and history means that we need to strive together to create and consume responsible news. As journalists, it is our duty to spread this our communities, to our readers, to our world, to the world, reject lies and deception on all sides. Reject the lies of apartheid and repression, battle the troops of anti-Semitism and world domination. As the Jewish media, we may just hold the key to this difference of opinion. We have the truth at our disposal and the means that passion to fight lies and conspiracy theories, it's in our table. And we have the privilege of working to find solution. We must do that now without delay. And in these next 4 days, this is what we are going to do, discussing the depth with panels, lectures, tours, and talks. And let's keep an open mind and remember that in the end of the day, we are one nation with one destiny, caring for each other and sharing our future. We will not be involved in Jewish media if it were not close to our hearts. So let's try and make the future of the world Jewry and the relationship between all communities at the government of Israel and try to be number one priority in our professional lives. We have enormous energy and influence and passion, and I hope that this summit will give you the tools to wield this energy for good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nitzan Chen, for your true words. Today we are celebrating the second candle of Hanukkah, my favorite holiday. Of course, for us this is a holiday of light, but for Yulia Rabenko, today is especially moving. It is her first Hanukkah in Israel. Yulia made Aliyah this past March, shortly after the outbreak of the terrible war between Russia and Ukraine. She was born and raised in the city of Cherkasy, southeast of Kiev. When the fighting broke out between Russia and Ukraine, she fled west together with her 12-year-old son to the city of Chernvozy, but did not feel truly safe there. 2 weeks later, Yulia and her son decided to try and come to Israel, where her oldest son has already studied in the Na'aleh program. But there were no longer any flights between Israel and Ukraine, and Yulia was compelled to travel overland via Romania. They were forced to leave behind the father of the family, as men are not allowed to leave Ukraine. In March, those who were able to come reached Jerusalem. Yulia is currently studying Hebrew and teaching English at the Jewish Youth Center in the capital. This is the Rabenko family's first Hanukkah in the Holy Land. I am honored to invite Yulia and her son Kirill to light the second candle of Hanukkah, together with Diaspora Affairs Minister Dr. Nachman Shai. בבקשה.
Okay, I'm very pleased to welcome you, Yulia, and your son. We, the ministry, has done, I would say, great things in Ukraine as much as we could to help the Ukrainian people, and I feel this is a challenge for us as Jews and Israelis to help the Ukrainians who are currently under attack and deserve the world support and, in my view, the support of Israel as well. So welcome to Israel.
Thank you very much.
Now we light the candle. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר שני של חנוכה. אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה.
הנרות הללו
How are you? מדליקים
הנפלאות ועל הנשואות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו עשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה מעוז צור ישועתי.
No? You'll speak in a minute. I don't want you to live like that.
תיקון בתפילתי ושם תודה נזבח
את אחידיה
מצווה נבח אז אגמור בשיר מזמור חנוכת המזבח אז אגמור בשיר מזמור חנוכת המזבח.
תודה רבה. It's your turn.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for inviting us here. And I would like to say that it is actually it's a kind of miracle. I know that Hanukkah is a time of miracles. And in our life, it was a miracle that it happened for us to come here to Israel, because it was absolutely unexpected, unpredictable, and unplanned. Yes, our eldest son started a Nale program here, but we thought that, well, our life was perfect in Ukraine, and we thought that maybe one day when we become pensioners or something like that, we will come to Israel to join our children. But because of war, we had to leave our houses, and we came here only with 2 suitcases of warm winter clothes, nothing, and we started new life here, and I'm very grateful for Jewish community and for all volunteers and for all people and who helped us, because we started our life from we turned our book of life and we started from the absolutely bare and new page. So, and now it's going on well, and actually I think that we are very happy and we are very blessed because we're here. So thank you all very much for having us here, for welcoming us here, and for your support, for your assistance, and for your help. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini!
Where is your husband? Still there? Well, let's hope one day that the family will be united and your husband will be able to come to Israel and all of you will live here peacefully and happily. Okay, amen.
Thank you, Yulia, Kirill. Thank you, Minister Shai. It is a holiday of miracles. It is very exciting. To many more happy years in the Holy Land. And excuse me for my singing. I'm a journalist, I'm not a singer. Okay. Thank you. I'll take it. The state of Israel. What was the first thing that popped into your heads when you heard these words? Israel is an extraordinary country, and we want the world to become more familiar with it and engage with it as a business partner, as a tourist destination, and as a source of cultural inspiration. Global research has shown that people do not know enough about Israel or have a distorted idea of what it has to offer. We are here to change that. I'm honored to invite Joanna Landau to the stage. Joanna is the founder of Vibe Israel, a nonprofit dedicated to connecting the next generation to Israel in the digital era. She's a globally recognized specialist in country and city branding and serves on the boards of Tel Aviv Global Tourism, Tel Aviv University, and the Education Committee of Birthright Israel. Joanna, bevakasha.
Hi, everyone. I'm not going to stand behind a podium. I don't do that. All right. So, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk to you about 3 things. First of all, I'd like to invite you to consider looking at countries in general, and Israel in particular, in a completely different way to the way that we're used to looking at countries, and especially Israel. Then, I'd like to explain why, if we want people to advocate for Israel, we need for them to be attracted to it, especially young people. And finally, I want to share with you a story of Israel that I know from experience works and has the power to get people to fall in love with it. Okay? At the very end, I'm going to explain why the people in this room are the most important people in the world. Okay, so it's worth waiting and worth waiting for that. All right, so we're going to start, and what I'm going to ask you to do is to forget everything that you think about when you think about telling Israel's story, whether it's hasbara or in its otherwise known word in English, hasbara, which means exactly the same, but nobody, if they don't know Hebrew, knows what it means. But ultimately, put it all aside, and what I want to invite you to do is to walk into a supermarket with me. Okay, imagine you're in a supermarket, and you take your cart and you start shopping around. But you realize very quickly that this is not your standard, regular, run-of-the-mill supermarket. You're not there to buy detergent. You're not there to buy toothpaste. You're actually there to buy a country. All right? And I like to call this supermarket the supermarket of nations. So you take your cart, and you're coming along with me, and you walk down to the first aisle. It doesn't say breakfast cereals, it says travel destinations. Okay, and as you walk down the aisle, you're now thinking, okay, where am I going to go on my next vacation? So you've got Iceland that's saying, come to me, I can get you into a volcano. And then you've got Switzerland over there that's saying, wait a minute, come over here, you can go on a skiing vacation. And there's someone walking around with this tray, this really great Swiss chocolates, right? Because it's Switzerland, and they make great chocolates. And then further down the aisle, you see the cowgirl from Times Square, and she's inviting you to come to Times Square, and you're thinking, wow, I really want to go to one of those Broadway musicals, and you want to experience what New York is all about. So this is the supermarket of nations. There are hundreds of thousands of products on the shelf. And there's not just one aisle. I'm not just talking about vacations. I'm talking about things like, for example, the made-in aisle, meaning when you're thinking of buying a product, let's say a car, are you going to buy a car that's made in Germany, or are you going to buy a car that's made in France, or in China, or in America? All of these things come into our thinking process without us even noticing, because we have an immediate association with different countries around the world. And each one of these countries is, in fact, a product, and that product is trying to get into your shopping cart. What they want you to do is to reach your hand out and put the product in the cart, meaning you want to buy it. And think about it. You guys are here. I'm going to assume that most of you have been here before, but if you haven't been here before and you're going through these next few days of the summit, you're going to discover Israel's story. So you know Israel. But people shop in the supermarket of nations all the time, everywhere around the world. And when they shop in the supermarket of nations, whether they're Jewish or not, they are at some point going to come across this country called Israel. What do they see? What is the story of Israel that they will come across? Now, we do a lot of global research, so I could show you the research, but a very, very smart guy was asked this question, and he gave, I think, the answer that represents what most people think. Let's see.
Homer? Homer? You know, our Bible study group is going to the Holy Land next month. I'd like you and your family to come as my guests.
Let me think. Take my family to a war zone, on a bus filled with religious lamos, in a country with no pork, in a desert with no casinos. Oh, where do I sign up?
Homer, I can hear your sarcasm from inside the house, and the dishwasher's on.
Okay, so this was the experience and the story that Homer Simpson was telling the world. This was from about 10 years ago. It was from a 3-part series of the greatest story ever doed, because that's what Bart likes to say and Homer likes to say. And here we go. This is Jacob, Yaakov, the very angry Israeli tour guide who kept on telling everyone to shut up all the time. It was played by Sacha Baron Cohen. And it was really funny because Homer was walking around and all you could see was the kotel. You could see religious people, you could see soldiers, and then at some point they end up in the desert. Homer has an epiphany, he thinks he's the Messiah, and he makes world peace in the Holy Land, right? This is the story. And it's kind of cute and kind of funny, and we all laugh. But the odd thing about it is, who do you think writes The Simpsons? It's actually a bunch of Jewish 30-something-year-olds in America telling the story of Israel as the most unattractive place on earth, okay? And this is our own people telling this story. And you ask yourself, if people are walking through the supermarket of nations, are they going to reach out and take this product off the shelf? Rather unlikely, right? So this is important because, you know, it's cute with Homer and Bart and all that stuff, and The Simpsons can be funny. But it's not so cute and not so funny when someone else is telling our story, when it's the BDS movement that's telling our story, when it's Bella Hadid who's talking about us. And we are consistently and constantly referring to the story that they're telling about us and saying, no, that story's not true, we're not like that, let me correct you. But we're forgetting to say what our story is. It's not just who we're not, it's also who we are. And this is important because we can control what we say. And if you don't make a concerted effort to brand your nation, in other words, tell your story, someone else will do it for you and for their own reasons. And we're seeing that, and it's getting very dangerous. We're looking at this whole, inflection of anti-Semitism and anti-Israelism. It's not acceptable, but we can do something about it. And this is particularly important today as we go into sort of 2023. We're not in 1995 anymore. Today, everybody has a cell phone. Everybody is using their smartphones to make decisions, to engage with anything around the world. And there's this amazing statistics from Facebook. In 2019, they discovered that the average person scrolls through their smartphones, through their social media feeds, every single day, the height of the Statue of Liberty. Think about that. That's amazing. And imagine, this was pre-COVID. Okay, so post-COVID, it won't be the Statue of Liberty if they did this research again. It would be the Burj Khalifa. That is how much information is coming to people, especially young people. All these different products that are being sold to them in the supermarket of nations, like I like to call it. And when you combine that with the 8 seconds, which is the average attention span of a Gen Zer or a millennial, 8 seconds, that's all you have. That's all the story you have to tell. You are in a bit of a pickle, as they say in America. And we don't want that to happen because it is absolutely integral for people to want to take that product off the shelf. And why is it so important? Because of the way our brains work. All of us, as human beings, whenever we make a decision, whether it's to buy a product, to support a charity, to vote for a politician, to advocate for a country, any of us go through what's called the engagement ladder, in the sense that we begin at the very bottom of the ladder, where we need to know that this product or person or place exists, right? They need to create attention. Once we know it exists, for example, people know Israel exists, but are they attracted to the story that Israel's telling? Because if they're not, then they're off the engagement ladder, and we don't go further up. I think we can all agree that the objective of us, all of us in the room, and of the state of Israel, is that ultimately people will advocate for it. And I don't mean necessarily in the Israel advocacy capital A sense. I mean just advocate for the country. Tell others that it's great. Support us when we need your support. To get there, you cannot forget about the bottom 2 steps, because the way our brain thinks, it's absolutely linear, and you cannot skip a step. I think a lot of us are focusing too much on trying to get people to advocate for Israel, but we're not asking us, why should they? Why should they want to? We need to give them a great story. Now, what is Israel's story? And here's a little tip to any of you who are influencers and writing about Israel, which I assume most, if not all of you are. I find it much more easy to tell not the story of the state of Israel. That is the job of the government of Israel. Actually, it's much easier to tell the story of the Israeli people, because the Israeli people are very inspiring. And here, this is what they're like when you put them all together. This is the spirit of the Israeli people. So this is who the Israeli people are, and these are all, these are all facts, right? I didn't make this up. This is really who we are. And when you try and pull it all together, and you want to create one sentence that really talks about who the Israeli people are, we are an optimistic nation of dreamers and doers, bound together by time and place, which is referring to the 25% of Israeli citizens who are not Jewish. We have to recognize that they're part of Israel's story and actually make it much more interesting to the world, and making our mark on the world. And that's referring to the innovation and the creativity and the startup nation and all that stuff. Now, why am I so excited about this? Why do I know that when you talk about dreamers and doers, that causes people to get engaged? That gets people attracted to Israel. Because my organization, Vibe Israel, has been telling this story to digital influencers with millions of followers from around the world. We bring them to Israel, and we share the story of Israel through what we call their passion point. what it is that they write about. So don't take it from me. Take it, for example, from Rachel. Rachel is an American food blogger with 1 million followers, and as we do every trip that we have, we invite our influencers for a Shabbat dinner, and I love the way she described this. She said experiencing Shabbat dinner was like having Thanksgiving every week. Now that is a storyteller, because what she's doing is she is making Israel, the Israeli experience, relatable to an American through what Americans know and what they care about and their traditions. That is one way of sharing a story. This is Patrick. Patrick is an Italian design blogger who founded a very popular design blog called Design Wanted. Once he hit the 1 million follower mark, he was bought by a larger magazine, and he said, every designer I met so far has a specific expertise, but what they all have in common is the will to be different, to find their own path, to innovate. What a great story, right? And then he showed a ton of pictures and stuff like that, and it was just about design. We weren't having a conversation about who's right and who's wrong in relation to the conflict. And finally, this is Kelly. She's an Australian mummy blogger with 500,000 followers. She spent her week in Israel discovering how we parent and how we live our lives as parents. And what she said was, what I discovered in Israel was a curious mix of deep tradition with mind-blowing, out-of-the-box thinking. That is a story of Israel that people can relate to. And you can bet that Rachel and Patrick and Kelly went up that engagement ladder, and they're even advocates. Kelly went on a radio show in Australia and spoke about her experience. Patrick came back, and now he helps Israeli designers in Milan and so on. So all these people went up that engagement ladder. And now, finally, I have a sort of request to you, the people in the room, and this is what I mentioned before. I'm going to end with a quote from someone who is arguably the biggest brander in the world, the one who knew best how to sell a brand, and that is Steve Jobs of Apple. And I'm going to say something after the quote, so don't stop there. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation that is to come. You are Israel's storytellers. And I'm going to quote another important person, but with great power comes great responsibility. Please remember, when you tell Israel's story, remember the supermarket of nations. Okay, Israel is just one product on a shelf. There are thousands of others that people can choose. Young Jewish people as well. We've got to give them a good reason to want to connect with Israel. Secondly, remember that we have to give that story in a positive way, not just manage the negative. And finally, when you tell Israel's story, remember that we're an optimistic nation of dreamers and doers. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Joanna. That was so interesting. Dr. Nachman Shai is Israel's Minister of Diaspora Affairs. He served as a member of the Knesset for a decade, representing the Labour Party from 2009 to 2019. Personally, everyone my age remembers Dr. Shai as the calming voice of the Gulf War in 1991 as the IDF chief spokesperson. During his time in the Knesset, Shai founded and co-chaired the Caucus for Strengthening the Jewish People. Minister Shai has held a number of positions in government, military, and media, including commander and editor-in-chief of Israel's Army radio, Galei Tzahal. Minister Shai has devoted many years of his life and a large portion of his professional career to defending Israel and strengthening the relationship between the Jewish state and the Jewish people. Minister Shai, please come to the stage.
Good evening. Minister of Defense Benny Gantz should come every minute, so I welcome him already. Ambassadors, Tsiona Koenig-Yair, she's the CEO of the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs. Nitzan Chen, my friend, head of GPO. My friends from the ministry and the colleagues and partners of us working together on quite a number of projects from the ministry and from other organizations. ladies and gentlemen of the Jewish press, distinguished guests. I got some cold and I apologize. That's because of the political situation, which I'm going to talk about, and I apologize if I a little bit carry a different message than the one that Joanna has just carried to you. It's a real privilege. It's a real privilege for me to stand here this evening, not only in my capacity as Minister of Diaspora Affairs, but also as someone who was for many years journalist myself. So first of all, Chag Chanukah Sameach to all of you. I welcome you in Jerusalem, in my own city, and I hope you will enjoy the time and the place that this conference is taking place. Thank you very much for coming. At the moment, I want to share with you some of my thoughts at the crossroads where Israel is standing. As the late Rabbi Dr. Jonathan Sachs wrote in his book, Convent and Conversation, to be a leader, you don't need a crown or robes of office. All you need to do is write your chapter of the story. As my personal chapter as Minister of Diaspora Affairs is coming to an end, we don't know yet when, but I assume within a few days. It takes time to form a coalition in Israel. I would like to point out some of the issues that are important for me before we write the next episode. The period that we are about to enter is challenging and, like all challenges, has positive and negative outcomes. Friends, first and foremost, I am concerned that the incoming government will damage the ties between the Jewish global community and Israel. And not necessarily unintentionally, but partly as a result of differences of ideology, partly because of political affiliation, and partly because of ignorance and unwillingness to understand the situation on the ground. Most Israelis have little or no understanding of what it is to be diaspora. Their Israeliness is their Jewishness. They have no need for the trapping of Jewish community, as their home is their community. Life as a Jew in Israel is non-demanding and usually doesn't even come up in conversation. It is just there. There are no understanding of being the other, no understanding of having to explain their Jewishness or having to defend it. Today, 75 years after the establishment of the state, almost 80% of Israelis are native born. They have a little idea of what global Jewry faces. When the average Israeli goes on vacation in the main, they do not visit a Jewish community. In Holland, they may go to a Jewish museum, but in Barcelona or Boston, they have no desire or knowledge of how to interact with the local Jewish community. Melbourne, Singapore, or Toronto are places to visit. Shalom, Benny. Welcome to Israel. Please welcome the Defense Minister of the State of Israel, Benny Gantz. They have relative, Melbourne, Santiago, or Toronto are places to visit. And unless they have relative there, they will have no opportunity to engage with the community. Israelis live in a vibrant, strong country, for the most part financially stable, technologically advanced, with mighty military to defend them. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. It's mainly also because of you. They are not nearly as appreciative as they could be of the enormous contribution diaspora Jewry has made to their own country, both financially, politically, and even some diaspora Jews who encourage their children to serve in the IDF as lone soldiers. Then we have the phenomenon of the Israeli who lives abroad. We have over 1 million Israelis who are spread around the world. There, Israelis are quick to set up alternative support groups and cultural communities, but they do not join the existing Jewish communities as they feel that they have no need to emphasize and preserve the Jewish identity. They see themselves as Israeli. For them, it's one and the same. Ladies and gentlemen, the idea that the Ministry of Diaspora, one of the smallest ministries, with an equally modest budget, although the largest ever, can somehow be the universal remedy to solve all problems of diaspora-Israeli relations, assimilation, anti-Semitism, and the future of the Jewish world is mistaken and delusionary. For those who think that the situation is static are also mistaken. The sum of anti-Semitism and indifference are greater than Israel's goodwill and heartfelt words of support. How can we fight against the tide of change? When, for example, at a Jewish secondary school in England, in London, the government has ruled it is no longer possible to remain exclusively Jewish institution for just Jewish pupils. It is a great school with an excellent reputation, but most of it takes students now are no longer Jewish. Hebrew has been relegated to just another modern language. Jewish studies are elective. And in the last engagement in Gaza, Muslim pupils studying at the same Jewish school and their parents demonstrated in the schoolyard with free Palestine flags. You know these stories to be facts, and they are concerning. But my issue is here in Israel. We are hurtling towards an even greater chasm, where issues like I mentioned thus now are ignored. Amos Oz wrote once, democracy in many parts of the world is undergoing a very deep crisis. Politics is becoming a brand of the entertainment industry. People vote not for the best leader, but for the funniest candidate, end quote. It is not an equally Israeli phenomenon and not a Jewish one either, but it is my backyard, my country, my people, and it affects both me and you equally. The results of this democratic election do not please me. And yes, it is a democratic result and I accept it. And we cannot change it. Some of the elected officials lack sufficient experience, and in any opinion, some of the coalition demands contradict and even contravene the democratic character of the State of Israel. They have been given a playground of powers that are high on zeal and euphoria. It is alarming, it is dangerous, and it will potentially damage our relationship with the global Jewish world and the international intent, and the very future of the State of Israel. We will need to work out any problems slowly and carefully, with sensitivity and understanding. The local Israeli elections were not about the law of return, or conversion, or prayer at the Western Wall. The elections focused on homeland security, on the cost of living, and on national and international politics. The diaspora was not the main issue. The assumption that you have won political power at home in Israel, and therefore you can trample the rights of those who were on the losing side, is insidious. It would be a grave mistake to sacrifice the ties between the world Jewry and Israel in one sweep of pen. It is a grave mistake to dismiss the beliefs of way of life of half of the Jewish people, just because they don't match your personal take on halakha or Jewish identity. Our brothers and sisters in the diaspora have always taken steps to rely for us, to advocate for us. But this has to be two-way street. So why I'm saying this here, at this forum, my colleagues, as an Israeli, as an ex-journalist, I'm asking you to feel a special role, to inform the Israeli public, to report on what is happening in your own communities, to challenge the challenges you are facing, the battle that you are raging. You should build the understanding between the diaspora Jewry and the State of Israel to find the common denominators, what brings us together, not what divides us. The more the Israeli understand the reality on the ground at Coney, the Crimson editorial at Harvard, the fight for Shechita in Denmark, The American HR report that says that 24% of recruiters do not hire Jews, and the Palestinian flag waved by a Muslim pupil at the Jewish school in London, so we in Israel will have a greater fellowship with you for both of our futures. I started out by talking about our story. Journalists, and especially Jewish journalists, have the privilege of being leaders for their communities by telling the story as it is. You have the opportunity to dispel ignorance. You have the opportunity to instill sympathy and understanding. Choosing words carefully is a moral responsibility. The symbiotic relationship between Israel and global Jewry is an integral part of our joint Jewish identity and community. It is the link with which we write our story and our history. We must find an equitable and inclusive language to run our Jewish world. Remain open and welcoming to all points of view. We must encourage a greater understanding of the challenges involved and a robust strategy to deal with them as journalists. Guys, my friends, it has been a real privilege for me to work with global Jewish communities for many years, and especially in the past year and a half as government of diaspora affairs. I am committed and determined to keep on working for both world Jewry and the State of Israel separately and together. I wish you all a successful summit, and I look forward to reading, hearing, and watching your insightful copy. Thank you very much again. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. We're very, 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 very happy to be here. Myself and the Tararam group. Yeah, please give your hand to the... It's pure Israelis. Don't think even, we're all Israeli born. Jerusalem, right? The two of us. Anyway, let's try something. Some rhythm. Let's bring some rhythm to this room, okay? Let's try something. All right. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. You see that? All right. Continue. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Woo. All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. Cha 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 cha. Hey. Cha 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 cha. Cha cha cha. Hey. Okay, yeah, it's very easy. It's going very, very well. Okay, we're divided to 3 different sections. Let's try some Hanukkah stuff, okay? Kat katan, are you ready? Kat katan, kat katan, kat katan. Hey, kat katan. Hey, kat. Let's hear you. Also, yeah, you in the back. Come on. Hey, let's see your hands. Hey, all right. With מערב and Avner. Okay. Are you ready here? Okay. Lior and Eden. Okay. It goes like this. Okay. We have Kat Katan. Chanukah, Chanukah. Hey, hey, hey. Chanukah. Hey, hey. Play the beat. Okay. Chanukah, Chanukah. Hey, all right. Are you ready for this? 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. חנוכה, חג יפה כל כך, כן. Hey. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And it goes faster. קטן. Hey. cut. קטן. Hey. cut. קטן. Hey. 1, 2, hey. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Hey. 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 And it goes faster. 1, 2, 3. Boom, boom. Hey, okay, faster. Oh. Hey, I think we're ready to do it with music. Gabi, אתה מוכן? Let's do it. Okay, together. Come on. Yeah. Kat katan starting. Yeah, they were good in the rehearsal. Part, okay? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's see your hands. Come on. Woo-hoo. Thank you very much. That's the Israeli beat, okay? Thanks.
Nice moves, you guys. Kol hakavod. Thank you, Tararam and Minister of Diaspora Nachman Shai, for your remarks. I'm honored to introduce our next guest, Minister Benny Gantz. The son of a Holocaust survivor, privilege it is to say the next sentence. The son of a Holocaust survivor and the 20th Chief of General Staff of the IDF, the Defense Minister and Deputy Prime Minister of Israel since 2029. He previously served as the alternate Prime Minister of Israel, Minister Benny Gantz. Bevakasha.
Thank you, my dear friends, Nachman, and all the guests. We say in Hebrew, before I give my speech, I want to say something. So here I am, I want to say something. First of all, as mentioned, I was the Chief of Defense Forces, and when I entered the room, they would do attention and everybody would rise. Now when I'm the Minister of Defense and Deputy Prime Minister, I have the drums, and if and when I'll become the Prime Minister, I will have the trumpets come as I walk in, because this is where the government is going. Now on a more serious perspective, actually I would like to say seriously that I think that Israel has many challenges, strategic challenges. I'm not just talking about fighting terrorism or things of that type, but altogether the first and foremost, of course, is the Iranian issue, and of course it's a big issue. I think we also need to clarify our relations with the Palestinians. And the third strategic issue, which is external because all the rest are internal ones, is definitely keeping our international legitimacy and the bonds between Israel and the diaspora Jews. And I think that this summit is very important and very instrumental to this strategic issue of the State of Israel. I want to thank the GPO and Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Diaspora, led by Nachman, and I also understood that the previous Minister Omer Yankelevich will be speaking down the summit, and I must say that till a few years ago, when I was more acquainted with the diaspora, I would say the administrative aspect of the State of Israel and the diaspora, I realized that this is a very important office, even though it's a small one, but it touches one of the most important issues of Israel. On the 4 years after I was the chief and before entering politics, I was about to form a non-profit organization under the title of the 12 Tribes, where I was hoping to use former lone soldiers in Israel who went back to their home countries, and they know Israel, they know the culture, they know Hebrew, but they also know their own homeland languages, and they could pretty much interpret whatever is happening here the way it really is. And I think that this is very important. So once again, I think that this summit is very important, and now I can give you my speech. I'm sorry. The Washington Post has a meaningful catchphrase which says that democracy dies in darkness. So if the traditional press is tasked with defending democracy and shining lights of truth, the Jewish press has doubled the responsibility, placing the same checks on authority, but also informing communities while keeping the tradition of argument alive. In other words, friends, thank you for your work and for being here this evening. The guiding question tonight is whether truly we are one nation and one destiny. When the ancient Greeks threatened the Jewish way of life, when the Nazis aspired to erase the Jewish people from the face of this earth, when the Jews of the Middle East faced pogroms such as Farhud, and even at the birth of the new state of Israel, when Arab nations launched their vicious attack, the Jewish people, in and outside the homeland, supported one another, fought back, and rebuilt their lives. I believe that the answer to the question is clear. The Jewish people throughout history and to this very day are one nation with one destiny. Let me clarify. Our lives are not bound by stories of persecutions only. Instead, we are tied by our faith and the determination to overcome. Only our shared strength and security can ensure the continuity of the Jewish people. I've spent over 40 years either in service or overseeing Israel's security. It is from this position that I can tell you, only a strong and secure Israel can be safe haven for wounded Ukrainians and refugees. Only a strong and secure Israel can be a light to the nation aiding our wounded neighbors during their civil war in Syria. Only a strong and secure Israel can support United States Jews in facing the highest wave of violence attacks in decades. On the flip side, it is our brothers and sisters in the diaspora who can ensure Israel's legitimacy in the international arena. It is the diaspora that must stand strong in the face of demonizing campaigns. And it is the diaspora that must continue promoting dialogue and diversity, tolerance, and democratic values. On this note, the ties that were forged between us over 3,000 years ago are stronger than any single leader, government, or event. It is the responsibility of both the government of the State of Israel and the Jewish leaders around the world to recognize and integrate all the stream of Judaism. Only united can we ensure our continuity and our resilience in Israel and around the world. Having said this, today the situation in Israel is very clear. We found ourselves after elections, and it is clear that I do not support the policies that the future government is already promoting. At the same time, I respect the democratic process and the results of this process in Israel, the only true democracy in the Middle East region. Our partners and friends, however entitled to their opinions, should not interfere in Israel's internal politics. With our futures tied, there are many missions ahead. Leading this list is the biggest threat to our people, the Iranian nuclear project. Iran is first a global and regional threat, and then it is a threat to the State of Israel. I believe this order to be true because Iran harms its own people, including violent attacks against innocent women protesting peacefully. It is a threat to the stability of the region and to global peace and order as we know it. Just as NATO has rallied around Ukraine, we must push our international partners to face the biggest global tyrant before it gains the power of deterrence with a nuclear umbrella. The timing is critical. Now that Iran faces international social economic difficulties, when Iran faces pushback for its role providing weapons to attack in Ukraine, when it hasn't reached yet the point of no return in its nuclear progress. We must deepen military, intelligence, and diplomatic cooperation with partners. We must involve Jewish organizations in increased dialogue around this challenge. The nuclear threat cannot fall from the global agenda. The time has come to place serious pressure on the Iranians in order to achieve a new and improved agreement. And if this should fail, the time has come for a combination of power projection and powerful reaction to Iranians' aggression. Our actions must be preemptive before it is too late. With your permission, let's circle back to our starting question. Are the Jewish people one nation that shares a single destiny? History has shown us that we defeat every threat united. And when I say united, I mean all kinds of Jews, no matter the kippah, the language, or stream. So tonight, as we light the second candle of Hanukkah, let us remember that we are stronger together and that the next chapter of our story must be also one of a triumph, because we simply cannot afford otherwise, and because our destiny is one. Thank you.
We would like to take 2 questions, please. Any questions? Yes, please present yourself.
Thank you. Minister Gantz, my name is Ari Bussel, coming from Los Angeles. We gather here from 4 corners of the world in Israel's capital, Jerusalem, and we know one thing, that the IDF is above politics. We know that the Israel Defense Forces are sacred to us all. The only other thing that probably all of us can agree upon is that Israel fails in public diplomacy. All of us are soldiers on the front line, and yet we are much like Israel on the Golan Heights in 1973. In between each of us, the Syrian army just marches on, and Israel as a nation stands undefended with the efforts of the various ministries failing miserably. My question is, should there not be a public diplomacy command, much like the Home Front Command or any other command in the military, to defend Israel in the public diplomacy arena in the world in a systematic and coordinated manner? Thank you, and Chag Sameach.
Toda Rabba, and thank you for that. I agree that it is very hard to explain ourselves outside the country. I also agree that if I put aside pure anti-Semitism, which will bear no explanation because it is so basic, no good propaganda will replace a good policy. So I think that first and foremost, we as a country must make sure that we conduct the right policy. Secondly, we must remind ourselves constantly, especially in Israel, that we are a country with a military force and not a military force with a country. It is the government responsibility to play this role of public diplomacy outside the state of Israel Having said that, the IDF should and is supporting this aspect with material and many more things that, that we can offer as a defense establishment, I would say. But at the very end of the day, it is a civilian administrative responsibility to move it forward with a national public diplomacy cabinet that should be playing its role. I think that the main two players are the foreign ministry, or three players, I would say, the foreign ministry, the Ministry of Diaspora, and to a degree the defense establishment with all its data and ability to explain what is really happening. But closing the answer, I think we must make sure that we are not only the strongest one around, but also the right one around. And this is a serious national responsibility.
We'll take one more question. We'll take one from here, please.
Minister, thank you for this inspiring speech. My question is a question I think that the current new Israeli government will have to face at some point. Given the fact that Israel views the Iran nuclear deal as an existential threat, and given the fact that Israel and the United States are very close allies, what do you think would be an adequate diplomatic and political response if the current US administration should go forward with the deal? And do you think there should be any consequences which concern the relationship between Israel and the United States?
Look, I don't see any other United States for the state of Israel, nor do I see any other Israel for the state of for the United States in the Middle East. We are the only country in the Middle East that doesn't ask United States to bleed for it. Coming from that perspective, I think we can afford first to keep a very tight dialogue. Some of it should be, is and should stay discreet. Some of it would be public with our American allies. And once again, we have no alternative for that. And the other issue is that the United States should remember that when we say unique relations with the United States, it's based on shared values, shared interests, and shared political system. And I really don't see any difference between what Israel needs and between what the United States needs as far as the nuclear Iran aspect which I spoke about. And I'm saying it not only from an Israeli perspective. I allow myself to say it from American perspective because I know the United States very well. I've been speaking with CENTCOM officials, with Pentagon officials, with United States Armed Forces officials, with Foreign Ministry, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs officials. And they do understand that a nuclear Iran will be damaging this stability of this area very much. When I met with counterparts in further places, such as Morocco, who talks about Algeria and the support that Algeria gets from Iran, or when I speak with Colombian counterparts who speak about Venezuelan influence of Iran. Those are global issues. Those are not Israeli issues. They are even more than regional issues. It's real interest of the United States as a global leader to take care of it. So I hope we can convince them in the right manner not to agree to a weak agreement full with loopholes as it is right now. And we keep this strategic dialogue with them as much as we can. Having said that, we do keep to ourselves both the right and the ability to defend ourselves by ourselves anytime. So this, of course, takes us to a future unknown decision. But I think we need to combine between being able to defend ourselves, but also being able to communicate strategically with the United States, also from an Israeli perspective, but not only from Israeli perspective, but also from regional and global perspective at the very same time. And I don't see, once again, any strategic backup for the state of Israel to exclude the United States, nor do I see any better supporter for the United States in the Middle East to exclude Israel, and I suggest that both sides will remember that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister Gantz. Well, he's very tall, yes. And thank you for your questions. For thousands of years, Jewish humor has saved us in dark places. To laugh at ourselves, today that is our people's #1 area of expertise. To every trouble, we respond with jokes. I'm excited to present a comedian who has joined the Jewish people. Israel Campbell was born into a Catholic family, and from there everything went downhill. Israel Campbell, bevakasha.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I've never headlined a show where the Minister of Defense opened for me, so I'm really proud. I'm probably the only graduate of Archbishop John Carroll High School for Boys that had the Minister of Israeli Defense open for me. I want to thank Minister Nachman Shai for your service and for your words tonight and all that you've done for the State of Israel and all the government press people. Thank you. Benny Gantz left, but I feel better knowing that he's in the government and knowing all that he's done for us. So thank you, Minister Gantz, who sees himself as Prime Minister. I think that's important. So thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be here. People meet me, they see me, they always ask, are you Haredi? Obviously, I'm not Haredi. I'm wearing a blue shirt. Though I did bring my Haredi briefcase. What is it with the plastic bag, right? $3,000 on a fur hat. You can't buy a canvas bag? I'm not saying you have to go to Coach, but somewhere between the $3,000 fur hat and the free plastic bag, there's got to be a middle ground. As if anyone Haredi would go to Steinmatsky. Right? Anyway, I'm really proud to be here, and I did grow up, I'm the firstborn son of a manic depressive Italian woman and a pathologically silent Irishman, which makes me wildly emotional in a very quiet way. I grew up Catholic. My parents went to Catholic school all the way through college. My mother then went into the convent. Thank God she left, otherwise only half of me would be standing here tonight. But my aunt was a nun, which makes Jesus my uncle. I'm not making that up. That's church doctrine. She's a bride of Christ. She's my aunt. He's my uncle. I only mention that in Jerusalem for parking. It doesn't get me far, but at the Scottish church, I park like that. I just say, I'm the nephew, and they wave me right in. My story is this. I grew up Catholic. Catholicism didn't really work for me. At 16 years old, I found out I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I found out I had to stop using alcohol and drugs. I met a group of people that told me they could help me stop if I found a power greater than myself that could help me stop. And I knew that wasn't the church. I tried going back to the church. I went to the church where the Mass was said in Creole, the language that Haitians speak. I thought maybe if I didn't understand what they were saying, it wouldn't bug me so much. but it got through. It's kind of the problem I have now with Hebrew. The more I understand, I'm like, we're praying for what? I have no problem praying for something 3 times a day if I don't know what I'm talking about. But the more I understand, and for me, I came to Israel almost 23 years ago. Part of the reason I converted to Judaism is that they said there's no hell in Judaism. Oh, there's hell in Judaism. The Hebrew word for hell is ulpan. I've been to every ulpan I met. The low point of ulpan for me is I was walking one day in Baca, the neighborhood I now live in, and I came upon a woman screaming at her poodle. And I looked at my friend and I said, Saskia, this dog knows more Hebrew than I do. No, because the woman was screaming at him in Hebrew and he seemed to understand what she was saying. And I understood nothing. My story is this. I was seeking and I was searching. I took a course. I saw an ad in the LA Weekly, one of these free newspapers. It said, so you want to be a Jew. Now, that's not what it said, but wouldn't that be a great ad? Right? And it was a course in basic Judaism offered by the Reform movement. And I took the class and I fell in love and I found out that I liked Judaism. I thought I didn't like religion because I didn't like Catholicism. But I like Judaism. I went to the rabbi. I said, I'd like to convert. What would I have to do to convert? He says, you have to answer these 5 questions in the affirmative. Shouldn't he tell me the questions before he tells me the answers? Yes, 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 yes. They were these. 1, did I come to this decision of free will? Yes. 2, did I sever any former religious affiliations? Yes. I didn't write the Pope and say I'm out. I think he knew. 3, would I throw my lot in with the Jewish people come what may? Yes. Now, my name was Chris Campbell. I didn't have beard, payas, hat under my hat, coat, tzitzis. When they come for the Jews and your name is Chris Campbell and you look like that, you say, they went that way. But he said I had to throw my lot in with the Jewish people come what may. 4, would I become an active part of the Jewish community? Yes. 5, if ever blessed with children, would I raise them as Jews? Yes. So there I was. I'd converted. Only then did I realize that most of the Jewish world wouldn't accept such a conversion. So I went to the conservative movement after a couple of years. And I want to say, I loved my time in the Reform movement. Nowhere in the Jewish world have I been welcomed into Judaism as I was in the Reform movement. 36 times it says in the Torah, welcome the stranger. We suck at that. We're like, welcome the stranger. What could God have meant? I don't know. This is Kabbalah. 36 times it says it. 3 times it says don't mix milk and meat. We have books and books. We have libraries full of books about not mixing milk and meat. The water, the steam, the onion, the knife. 36 times we're like, I don't know. I don't think so. But I was welcome there. I became a part of the community there. I believe had I died, I would have gone to heaven as a Jew. But the Jewish world didn't feel that. Soon I became involved in the conservative community. I converted again. And then when I moved to Israel, just to be safe, I converted again. Because here, of course, we know there's no separation of church and state. Well, actually, there's complete separation of church and state. There's just no separation of synagogue and state. So just in case I ever wanted to get married here or die here, I converted Orthodox. 3 conversions, 3 circumcisions. 3 circumcisions is not a religious covenant. It's a fetish. The first time, now, I don't mind telling you, when I was born in a Catholic hospital in 1963 and I was circumcised, thank God. I don't know if that was President Kennedy's responsibility or the Secretary of Health and Human Services or the Surgeon General's, whoever it was, thank you. But when I did the first conversion, the rabbi said, you have to get circumcised again. Now, there's only way to do that is hatafat brit. Now, when they say it in Hebrew in America, it's so you won't understand what they're talking about. Because hatafat brit sounds like hachikichiwa. Hachikichiwa sounds like a drink that should come with an umbrella in it. What they're talking about is ritual bloodletting, not from your thumb. They sent me to a urologist. in North Hollywood, California. I went into the office and the nurse was very serious. She said, sign this list. I said, what is that list? I don't like to be on lists. She said, that's the permanent list. If you ever lose this paper, you won't have to have this done again. I said, I'm not going to lose this paper. I've lost my passport. I've never lost that paper. She took me into the room. She gave me that robe you wear at a doctor's office. It's open in the back. For a circumcision, you just wear it open to the front. She looked me in the eye and she said, wash your penis for 3 minutes. I don't think I've ever washed my penis for 3 minutes. That was 10 seconds. After 3 minutes, I'm not washing anymore. Actually, after 3 minutes, I'm done. I brought a book. Who brings a book to a circumcision? I wanted him to think I was serious. I waited 5 minutes. Finally, the doctor came in and he said, we have to pray in Hebrew and draw blood. He said, we'll pray as hard as we can. We'll draw as little blood as possible. I've never prayed so hard in my entire life. There I was. I had my second circumcision. The other part of conversion is Beit Din, religious court, and mikveh. Now, I went to the mikveh at the University of Judaism in Bel Air, California. Bel Air, for those of you that don't know, looks down on Beverly Hills. Bel Air is where President Reagan used to daven. I'll say this about the mikveh at the University of Judaism in Bel Air, California, a very nice mikveh. Kind of a cobalt blue tile. They don't have a wave machine, but you could see where they put it if they got one. And there they were. I'd never been in a mikveh. It was like a hair salon with a pool in the middle. And I went into the mikveh, and the woman from the mikveh took me in, and she said beforehand, she showed me the mikveh. She didn't take me in. She left the room, of course. She said, this is an absolutely pure living body of water. Once you go in, it's absolutely pure. It's being fed, it's being drained, it's a living body of water. And the third time she said absolutely pure, I noticed a small hair floating on the absolutely pure living body of water. And when she left, I got out the skimmer. Well, they had one. I mean, it was Bel Air. I'm surprised they didn't have a pool boy. A cabana boy. Oh boy, there's a hair in my mikveh. And get me a hachikichi wa, won't you? Right there I was. Now, I tell this joke as if one hair in the mikveh is something special. Now I go to the mikveh in Nachlaot, where they have small clumps of what look like rodents floating in the water. Forget the skimmer. You'd need a bow and arrow or something. And there's always like 3 big chassids sitting in the mikveh using it as a schwitz, who actually help because there's no bracha when a man goes into a mikveh except for circumcision. So without a bracha, it's hard to have kavana. But when there's 3 big guys in the mikveh with you, it's easy to have kavana. Dear God, please don't let anyone touch me. Please, God, don't let me touch anyone. Father O'Connor, is that you? Okay, good for you, not laughing at that stereotypical joke aimed at my childhood. Anyway, there I was, and I converted, and I became part of the Jewish people, and I converted again, and I became part of the Jewish people, and I converted again, and I hopefully at some point have become part of the Jewish people. And I moved to Israel. And I live here, and I've lived here, and I've built my life here. It's not just a prop. I brought some stuff. I brought this. We all know what this is, right? This is a vest. If your car breaks down on the side of the highway in Israel, you're supposed to wear this vest when you get out of the car. Now, last year there were over 300 traffic fatalities in the state of Israel. 21 people died in terror incidents. What that says is that we're actually better at killing ourselves than they are at killing us. If they want to kill us, they should just leave cars on the side of the road with the keys in them. But the law is you're supposed to wear this. I would no more wear this on the side of an Israeli highway than I would to, say, a Dick Cheney hunting party. Thank you. That's a very old joke, and I appreciate you laughing at it. It would take too much time to explain that joke, but I just want to say about driving in Israel. Driving in Israel explained to me a very important question, because there's a big machloket in our tradition. There's a An argument in our tradition, is the land of Israel holy? The land, it's generally accepted that we're a holy people, but is the land holy? Some of the sages say yes, some of the sages say no. This question was answered for me recently in downtown Jerusalem unequivocally when I watched a man park his car. Before he got out of the car, he put a handicap placard in the windshield. But when his foot touched the land, he was healed. He got out of the car with no visible handicap. I screamed, Baruch Hashem, thank God. I wanted to hug him. He was not nearly as moved by his healing as I was. No, I mean, he had been handicapped. I had watched him park. When I was learning in the Reform community, my first interaction with Judaism, we learned about the Hanukkah candles. The rabbi, when he was teaching us, he said, on the second night of Hanukkah, we light the second Hanukkah candle first. Do you know why? Anyone? Because it's new. That's what he said. It's new. The other candle burned last night. It might be nervous. It might feel a little grrr. So out of consideration for the feelings of a candle, we light it first. Now, I'm not insane. I happen to know that on the second night of Hanukkah, the first night candle is just as new as the second night candle. They're both brand new. Last night's candle's gone. It's never coming back. But suddenly it occurred to me, if this is a people, if this is a culture, if this is a religion that cares so much about the feelings of a candle, imagine how they must treat people. Not so well, I find out. I mean, not all the time. We can be very tough on people, especially if we're helping them. Right? I think that's what was being spoken about tonight. Finding a way to become one people again. Finding a way to unify. Finding a way to speak to the person who's not just like you. And that's your job, I guess, as we go out of here, as we go forth. My wife we have twins. We have 4 children. The twins my wife was in the hospital for 10 weeks on bed rest before the twins were born. When they were born, they were small. Twins are often small. They were born early. They were born small. Our son was 2.2 kilos, which is, I don't know how many pounds because I didn't believe them when they said the metric system was going to catch on. Our daughter was 1.6 kilos, just over 2 pounds. You go to the Pagia, the neonatal intensive care, when you're that size. And she stayed there for 17 days. And in those 17 days, you don't go home until you're 2 kilos. In 17 days, she gained 25% of her body weight, thanks in large part to the Russian nurses of Hadassah Har Tzofim Hospital. Because when she was born, I fed her first meal, 5 cc's of formula in the nipple of a bottle. There wasn't even a bottle attached to it. I would feed her and I'd say, I don't think she wants to eat anymore. And the nurse would say, she will eat. I fed Comrade Stalin, I will feed her. Do you think taping the bottle to her head is a good idea? I mean, she was tiny. She came home in this. I mean, the bottle was bigger than she was. When they sent this baby home, all they told us was that she has to poop 4 to 5 times a day. I mean, that makes sense. That's her head, that's her bottom. How long can it take, right? She came home on a Thursday. She pooped 4 times. Okay. That's within the normal range. I'm not going to be one of those fathers that insists on the 5th poop. Friday, nothing. And I can't call anyone because it's Shabbat. Saturday, again, no poop. This baby now has 8 to 10 poops floating around in her body, and I can't call anyone. Now, I don't know if you know this, but in July, in Jerusalem, when you have a baby that's not pooping, Shabbat goes out at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Finally, Shabbat goes out, we call the pediatrician, we say, she's not pooping! Pediatrician says a baby poops 4 to 5 times a day or once a week. How can that be? How can it be that the normal range, totally normal, nothing is wrong, is 28 to 35 times a week or once? The day she was born, I held this little girl in my arms. I looked at her and I said, little girl, I'd never held my own child. I had no idea this would be my reaction. Any of you that are parents know, I looked at her with a full heart, with a complete heart. I've never meant anything so much in my entire life. I said, I just want you to be happy. That's it. Just happy. And married, but that's it. Happy and married to a Jew. But that is it. Happy and married and educated. But that, 17 days later, I'm holding the same baby thinking, just poop! I should tell you about the clothes. They're from the Gap. The tag says Baby Gap, newborn, preemie, 0 to 5 pounds. My question is this, does a 0-pound baby need clothes? Right? A 0-pound baby has neither arms nor legs. It doesn't need a pocket. And I imagine at the Gap they must have a lot of meetings. Right? And someone at the Gap must have said, the tag will say Baby Gap, newborn, preemie, 1 to 5 pounds. And someone else said, no, write 0. We can clothe the 0-pound baby. We're the Gap. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your support of Israel and your continued work. Without any further ado, I'll give you back to Mary.
Thank you, Israel Campbell. I love your sense of humor. Now, I was asked to tell you that you should go to sleep early tonight because there's a long summit and a wonderful day awaits for you tomorrow. We would like to conclude with singing Hatikva, and I want to thank you for being here. So please rise for Hatikva. Thank you very much. Chag Sameach.